Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Chatting with the Lightkeeper. I'm Edward, and I want to apologize in advance for the sound of my voice. I have picked up just a little bit of a touch of a cold. I guess it's my American Thanksgiving present to myself. I hope that today is as bad as it gets, and hopefully tomorrow things start to kind of pick up and do better. And I also hope that my voice kind of clears up a little bit as I talk a little bit, but that may or may not happen. It could just be wishful thinking on my part. Anyway, here in my neck of the woods in the wonderful land of the United States of America, Thursday is Thanksgiving. So I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. And I do know that many other countries have already celebrated the holiday, and perhaps we're a little behind here, but Thursday is my big, fantastic Thanksgiving dinner, which I cook for myself. I have a small family. I'm an only child, and my mom has long since passed away, and it's my dad and I, as far as family local. And he has a wonderful partner. I guess we could say girlfriend. They don't ever intend to marry, but they do, I don't know, 90% of everything together, which is fantastic. I couldn't be happier for him and couldn't be happier to have his partner as a part of my life as well. But Thanksgiving is traditionally, they travel to her children, down to see her children. So it's a holiday that I typically spend by myself. I do have always every year invitations from friends and the extended family that I avoid at all cost. Um, Not the friends, the extended family is what I avoid. I don't avoid the friends, but I do politely decline their dinner invitations because it's no fun for me to be the outsider in somebody else's family. So I do big old turkey, mashed potatoes, corn, carrots, green bean casserole without those oniony things on top because I don't like those. Make my German potato salad, normally an apple and a pumpkin pie. Make some homemade mac and cheese. Really, I have more food than I know what to do with, and I'll share it with some of my neighbors. In my little neighborhood, I have a couple of widowed neighbors, and so share some of the leftovers with them. And of course, once my dad gets back from his gallivanting, he looks forward to raiding my leftovers as well. So it all works out well. And that's how I typically spend my Thanksgiving, if you were curious. And I actually enjoy it. I enjoy the quiet, the downtime, and the not having to worry about the phone ringing, not having to worry about friends and family or who's coming when or if somebody's making what, and then trying to play nice with people you can't stand, which is how things are, in the extended family land for me. Not everybody, but there's a few. So it works out very well. Then I do the Thanksgiving holiday solo. And anyway, that is what is upcoming for the week. And I am looking forward to it. I still have to pick up a few more things, but other than that, I am ready for it. So let's get back to where we kind of left off last week. We were talking last week about how the lifestyle empowers people, and last week I focused on the submissive side of the slash. And so I started sitting down and me being me, taking notes, getting things together, and all of a sudden it dawns on me that there's a joke out there, and it's an old joke and it's a bad joke. So I don't think any of you will laugh at me here. You might laugh at me, but not with me. But the joke is Pete and Repeat are out fishing, and Pete falls out of the boat. Who's left in the boat? So when the person says Repeat, you say Pete and Repeat are out fishing. Pete falls out of the boat. Who's left in the boat? And they say Repeat, and you say it again and again and again. Even children don't find this amusing. But what happened when I started doing my notes and looking at things is a lot of what we talked about with the how the lifestyle empowers submissives. You could sort of flip the coin over and immediately see how the the same thing was true of dominance. And I thought, jeepers, I don't want to talk to everyone and basically repeat what I said the week before, other than just sort of flipping over the coin. So I threw all my notes away, and once again, me being me, I have mental deadlines. I know there isn't a deadline with the podcast, but I have mental deadlines that I have that I want to have it done by, and just have it ready to go. And so that was fast approaching. And the thought process that I came up with to try and not make this a Pete and repeat out fishing in the boat with Pete falling overboard and everyone going, oh, yeah, yeah, I heard this last week. I heard this last week. I heard it last week. I went and did a little research. And of course, um, this is my own rendering. So you may or may not agree with all of these. But I kind of looked at the top 20 myths that are out there about dominance, those things that are just constantly swirling around, that are basically malarkey. But if you're a newer dominant, it's hard to avoid some of that, and you're questioning, is this right? Isn't it right? So I thought, let's look at those like top 20 uh, misconceptions about dominance, and look at the misconception and then see how in reality the truth behind the misconception, or the truth of the matter, how it actually empowers dominance. So that's going to be how, in my mind, we're going to approach this without it having to be a Pete and repeat episode. So the first one out there is that dominants are always aggressive. And I think you see this primarily because of the way the media portrays DS. You look at one of my favorite movies, The Secretary, which was on, I don't know, it was a week, maybe 2 weeks ago. But James Spader's character, the original Mr. Gray, um, never asked for consent. It's just, um, he takes. He doesn't ask for consent of his secretary to spank her. He doesn't ask for consent to masturbate and come on her back. He just does all these things. And yes, in the concept of the movie, it's it fits the movie, and I know it can be stimulating for people watching it, but it's just that whole myth that he aggressively takes, and sort of is all in control with his life. And in a way, that all in control part and the being aggressive side of it, if you look at the secretary, kind of at the end, um, and I apologize, I cannot for the life of me remember the secretary's, uh, the character's name. But at the very end, when she sits at his desk and he says, "Don't move," and she doesn't move for days, um, it it's sort of like he has lost control at that point. He doesn't know what to do, and that's the wonderful thing about DS, is that dominance. We are not um, always aggressive. We are not always aggressively controlling things. We, as dominants, we have insecurities. We um, debate. Should I be aggressive here? Should I lay back? Should I do this? Should I do that? It's not all aggression all the time. And of course, all of that, the aggression is with consent, obviously. That goes without saying. But the debate in learning when and where to allow your dominant aggressions out, shall we say, that empowers dominance, and it also carries over into vanilla life, because we learn kind of the DS lifestyle can be one of the learning tools that people have to learn, even in the office space, when, office place or workspace, to when to be aggressive with champion an idea, and when to sit back and maybe let it sit or let it stew, or to just let it go because it wasn't up to snuff. So the aggressive malarkey, um, the flip side, the truth side of it, is actually something that does empower dominance. Now, up next is once again, it's fed by the mythology, especially what's out in the media, is that dominance, we are solely focused on our own desires. We're selfish bastards. We have no empathy. The truth of the matter is that for dominants to do what they do, and for submissives to do what they do, there's a whole lot of mutual desire, mutual communication. It is not all about one party or the other. In fact, I would argue just the opposite is true. It is my belief, there are those who disagree, but it's my belief that the dominant does more, if you will, giving. They sort of give more of their life to the submissive because they have to lead the submissive. They have to, be empathetic and kind of walk in their shoes to try and formulate ideas, plans, and how to lead, why to lead, and explain all of that. So the lifestyle really forces us to be focused on the D side, on prioritizing communication, prioritizing empathy, and ensuring the well-being of our submissive or submissives, or partners, however your relationship is. But the DS lifestyle really encourages, and in fact, if you are an individual who doesn't have any empathy, you're going to not uh, not be around long, on the D side of life. I know it's with the internet, people can disappear and reappear and all that stuff, but yeah, that sort of stuff just doesn't fly, and it isn't part of the lifestyle because it's all a two-way street, and the dominant is giving so much of themselves, just as their submissive is. Um, but that empathy and really being able to focus on the well being of their submissive teaches lessons and empowers dominance outside of the DS world. We learn to be more empathetic, to peers, to friends, to total strangers. So the whole notion that dominants lack empathy is obviously crapola, but it also, the empathy in the lifestyle teaches and empowers dominants to take that not only from their lifestyle relationship or their lifestyle interest and bring it over into their everyday world. Next is one of the bigger myths that are out there, and this one is dominants are always in control. Everything a dominant does, they are in control of. So that always makes me kind of question this. How can a dominant fly on a commercial airliner as a passenger? Because on a commercial airliner, for example, you have no control. You are in your seat with your little seatbelt on, or seatbelt off when the thing goes ding, or if you're a rebel, you don't put your seatbelt on at all and hope the flight attendants don't catch you. But in a situation like that, no matter dom, sub, vanilla, kinky, what have you, we're all just passengers in life. So dominants are not always in control, and in fact, since it's becoming towards winter time in my neck of the woods, there's a lovely condition that happens in the winter here, that is called black ice. And if you live, say, in a tropical climate where you've never driven through snow and winter wonderland, which is why, as you go from San Francisco up into the California Sierra Nevada mountains, you'll see giant billboards this time of winter, or this time of year, all the way through the end of the snow season, late in the spring, that says, "Caution: snow is slippery." And of course, me from Michigan, it's like, yeah, thanks for the tip. But there are people who've never experienced it. And black ice is one of those things that some people have never experienced. And black ice is a misnomer. It is actually crystal clear ice that you can't see. You have no idea it's there. And when your car hits it, or even you hit it if you're walking, um, your car will do whatever it wants to do. Sometimes your car will stay relatively straight and you'll come out the other side just fine. Or other times, maybe it's a gust of wind, or you had the steering wheel with a little input just enough to be wrong and the car takes off. You have no idea when it's coming, and it's just like life. Um, you have no idea when the other shoe is going to drop in life, and something is going to happen that is going to take us from feeling that we are in control of our lives to struggling. And so that black ice analogy, um, for me, shows the reason why I use it is to show that dominants are not always in control. There are times when the dominant will, with the relationship car, if you will, hit the black ice, end up in the ditch or smash into another car and need their submissive to pick them up, help put them back together again. Dominants are definitely not in control all the time, every time, some of the time, and yeah, it's one of those myths that are out there. Boy, I'm struggling with that word. Um, and when we learn, especially in DS, when you learn that your dominance or the area that you're leading in the relationship as a dominant um, is obviously it's consensual, it's negotiated, and it's something that there are times when you're going to struggle with it, and you're going to need your submissive's help to get you through it. And of course, going through those times, it's not fun. It's never great, but they do empower us and teach us to lean on other people and to um, put our faith in other people, which is very important. So the myth that dominants are always in control is just that. It is a giant misconception. So next up, besides always being in control, dominants having being so self-centered, egotistical bastards, if you will. On top of that, we are emotionally detached. We don't show emotion. We just I don't know, deliver spankings and floggings and tie people up and do all these things with no emotion at all. It is just, it's robotic. And so, how the robotic is stimulating when the largest sex organ that any of us have, regardless of gender, is our brains. So, it's very odd that this is a popular misconception, but it is. And that emotional detachment myth, I think perhaps it's a little bit of um, vanilla people trying to understand, not being able to understand. So they try to say, well, maybe if there's no feelings attached or emotions that people can do this to each other. Or I guess you could even look at the way it is in some of the movies and TV shows and all that good stuff out there. It's very sometimes presented as very emotionless. But the truth is, it's emotion and the emotional connection with whether it's your partner or play partner, there's an emotional connection there, and it's really a crucial aspect for DS. And that emotional connection not only drives a dynamic, whether it's a relationship or a playship, but it helps foster trust, it helps build intimacy, and all of those things um, help empower a dominant, and not just in the terms of the lifestyle. I mean, learning how to better build trust, the lessons that we learn in our relationships, in friendships, in the lifestyle. Um, those carry over. Obviously, we're building trust a little bit differently. We're not building trust because we want to take out our trusty paddle and spank somebody's backside in our workplace. But the same process of building trust with somebody who you do want to pull out your trusty paddle and spank their backside, um, you can apply some of the lessons, just don't apply the paddle, in our daily lives. So emotionally detached dominance is crapola, but emotional attachment and the lessons it teaches us are very empowering. Now, I'm not sure if any of you remember the airplane movies. They, I, boy, I've seen them on late night TV, and I can't think of the actor. Very famous comedic actor who's in them. And there's a scene where somebody calls him, says, "Surely you're not serious," and he responds, "Surely you're not calling me Shirley." Um, but it goes to the misconception that dominants are always serious people. And online, I like to refer to some of the dominants, mostly gentlemen, that always display in their profile pictures super serious face. And the whole dominants are serious myth is like on full display there. Look at me, I am so serious about this. And while it's good to be serious at various points in your relationship, the whole overdoing it with the seriousness, the whole overdoing stern face makes these mostly gentlemen look like they are constipated and they are having a tough time while they are on the toilet with their constipation. So I like to refer to those folks as constipated dom face. But the myth is, of course, that because DS is serious, and it is a serious thing, that dominants are always stern and they're serious. And the thing is, no, no, life is too short. And for the most part, dominants are fun, outgoing, friendly people, just like your vanilla friends who understand there's a time to be serious and there's a time to be playful. And even during serious playtime, there can be serious laughs as well. Um, there's a saying somewhere that floats around in a meme, and it's like on continuous float out there. And then it says, like, if you don't laugh at least once when you're having sex, you're having sex with the wrong person. And I think the whole, I don't know how many times or if somebody needs to laugh to be with the right person. I'm not a sex educator or a sex therapist, so I don't know the formula there between laughter and orgasms. But life is too short to not be serious, and I think that's an important lesson that does empower dominance through DS is learning or not necessarily learning. It's not like this is riding a bike with training wheels, but the lessons learned in DS about when to be serious, when to laugh, and how serious times can be seriously funny as well carries over into our lives, and it's an empowering journey because we learn to not take everything as seriously as we perhaps used to, because we can find the silver lining on a cloudy day, and also um, we learn to laugh not only with others but at ourselves. So dominance, the misconception of seriousness, is seriously misconception. Now, kind of going back to where we started with the back towards the top with empathy, is of course that dominants are selfish. We are selfish pigs who just take what we want, and when we're done taking, we discard. Is the myth, and it couldn't be more untrue. Um, Even when you see role plays or scenarios or scenes where a dominant is taking from their submissive, obviously this is all happening with consent. It's been negotiated. It's been talked through. Everything that's happening, the partners have consented to. They're engaged with consent. Um, and on top of that, um, it goes right back to dominance and caring for others. What you're doing as a dominant is you're taking a consensual leadership role for a certain part. It's not necessarily all of a relationship. It can just be certain parts or however it works for you. Um, but in those areas, you are actually leading your submissive partner, but in order to lead them, you have to put them first. It's not about what works best for you, but it's all about what works best for them and what is going to get them to their goals. So, yeah, that selfishness is not there, and really, that looking at what is best for others rather than being selfish, that's actually empowering, and it does once again carries over outside the vanilla world, um, because it enhances the way a dominant looks at a scenario, whether it's work or family or whatnot in the vanilla world, where they can try to see it through the other person's eyes and look for mutually beneficial solutions rather than what's just best for them. And that is kind of in contrast with the where we are in the with the regular world now. Everyone seems to be out looking for what is best for them. And so next up is dominants are always in charge outside of the bedroom. Now this one always cracks me up because why do they put outside of the bedroom? Does that mean like the way that these uneducated folks are about kink? Does that mean in the bedroom the submissive is in charge? I mean, in some relationships, it can be a switch and that can happen, and but it always cracks me up when I see this one that dominants are always in charge outside of the bedroom. And that outside of the bedroom makes me laugh because it's like, well, what happens in the bedroom? The dominant isn't in charge there. But I think it goes to the fact that it rolls in with the dominants are always large and in charge, and no, it once again it's untrue. Dominants, of course, are only in charge of the areas where there's consent, and it often does not extend to all areas of another person's life. Most times, the great majority of DS relationships are like that, where it's sort of compartmentalized. This component you can lead, this component I lead, this component over here is a we thing. So yeah, it kind of always cracks me up when I see it. But how something like that empowers a dominant is that it allows a dominant to understand where taking charge is a good thing, where uh, letting somebody else lead the charge is a good thing. It helps us understand and empowers us through understanding. Obviously, once again, seeing things through other people's eyes. Um, the next one up um, is that dominants are abusive. You know what dominants do? They're abusive sons of bitches. Of course, that is totally wrong because one of the biggest, if not the biggest, differentiator between BDSM and abuse is consent. Everything that happens in a DS relationship happens with consent. And if what happens or happened did not happen with consent, it is not BDSM. It might be assault. It might be rape. It might be something even worse. But everything that happens in DS happens with consent. And through consent, we actually, consent itself empowers dominance. I know that sounds kind of crazy. And it kind of, this flows right into the other big myth that dominants don't need consent. They can just, when somebody says they're your submissive, you take. But that consent piece is so empowering for dominance because if you look at some of the things that happen in a DS relationship, whether it's, let's just look on the play side of things, some of the things that happen, some of the scenes that get created, they are things that a dominant will, after the fact, they might struggle. They might feel bad about themselves. I did. this in society, society, for example, society says you should never hit a woman. Well, I'm a man and I like hitting a woman on her tush. But I'm still hitting. And for the longest time, that was a huge stumbling block for me. When I kind of started tiptoeing back to the DS lifestyle, how can that society says is bad, that makes me a horrible individual? How can I like that? What's wrong with me? So, through consent and everything that consent gives, consent empowers dominance to do the things that the submissive loves, the things the dominant loves, that society says perhaps that we shouldn't love, but we do. And that consent piece empowers us to learn about it, to grow with it, because everything that is happening with a yes, please do this to me, and yes, it's okay to do this to me. And afterwards, you talk about it and still get reassured that what was done was okay. And I know it sounds crazy that a dominant needs reassurance, but yes, we do, especially when we are doing something that perhaps goes against society's stigmas, or perhaps is something that is we have never done as a dominant before, or all sorts of reasons. But consent is empowering for dominance, and it is something that teaches us all about consent. Consent actually helps being able to negotiate. Consent helps everywhere in life, really. Getting somebody's consent to do X, Y, and Z in the workplace. Hey, I need you to say it's okay if I step in and help you with this, or hey, is it okay if I take this off your plate? All sorts of wild and crazy ways we use consent in our everyday lives, and consent empowers. So there is that. Now, next up on Misconception Street is that dominants are fixated on physical punishment. The I don't know whether it's graphic novel, cartoon, or whether it's now been a movie, but there's the cartoon. Sorry if you're a big fan of this, but the character's called the Punisher, and there are so many dominants, especially online, that play the role of the Punisher. And it's okay to be a punishing dom if that's your jam and that worked for your submissive. But it's a myth that all dominants rely on physical punishments, and it's so not true. Um, and how this myth actually empowers dominance, especially for somebody like me, is that when you, because I'm not a punishing guy, I'm not a punishing dom. Yes, I will uphold the relationship and uphold the structure, certainly will. But so many people forget that you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. Um, but I like vinegar. I'm weird like that. I'd rather drink the vinegar than the honey. Um, but I am unique in that way. But it's one of those things where you learn to, as a dominant, you learn to focus on the positive, use positive reinforcement, and if you are truly leading somebody, you're going to want to use the positivity and positive reinforcement, which empowers everyone. And that, of course, that lesson carries over outside of the DS relationship, using positivity and the power of being positive, rather than being a negative Nelly. So the whole dominance or punishing, I don't know, ogres is a myth where actually the opposite is true, where you are, as a dominant, doing much more, um, leading by example, by using rewards, praise, and all those good things. And of course, that empowers and carries over into our everyday world. Um, the next one that is out there, is that dominants are always stoic. That we are either unemotional or we stay at the same. You know, the seas can be going up and down, but the dominant boat doesn't rock with the seas. It just stays sailing straight along. And no, it's so not the case. Once again, to be involved in a DS relationship, you end up opening up a whole bunch on a whole new can of worms the first time you do it of emotions and vulnerability. But all those emotions and all those vulnerabilities that come out empower us, and we learn that it's okay to be emotional. It's okay to be vulnerable with a partner. And when you become more comfortable and more willing and able to really allow yourself to be your authentic self, that obviously empowers. The next one is that dominants don't have insecurities. And this is so common online. And in fact, on my Instagram last week, I had a little post and a saying that I did about dominance and insecurities. And of course, there were a couple of, just judging from their content, I'm going to unfortunately label them, and I know I shouldn't, but I did judge them as online wannabe doms. And they were adamant that a dominant has no insecurities and they feel, um, no, if they're not, somehow they don't make mistakes and they have no insecurities, they don't overthink and all these things. And that couldn't be further from the truth in reality. In reality, everybody has insecurities, everybody has irrational fears. Um, we all have unique things that make us unique and things that we are not confident in ourselves and that we should be confident in ourselves about. In DS, the relationships and the communication and building that safe space and that safe, trusting harbor you have with your submissive or your partners, all those things allow us to share our insecurities, grow from them, and as we grow from them, it empowers us to not allow those insecurities to hold us back. And, an insecurity that perhaps is in the kinky bedroom may not apply to work life, but how you face that insecurity in the kinktastic bedroom can teach you how to face the work life insecurity and overcome it. So there is that. Um, Next up is that dominants are always masculine. This is one of my biggest pet peeves. That's why I try to, in all my writings, try to be gender neutral rather than letting my own preferences come through. Um, it's something that I try. I know at times I do screw up and fail, but it's one of my biggest pet peeves about the lifestyle that dominant equals man, submissive equals woman. And the thing is that DS doesn't, there are dominants of every gender. There are submissives of every gender. It does not play a role at all. And how I find this empowering, and it might seem kind of strange that I would find something sexist like this empowering, but the lifestyle really has been an empowering place where I've been able to connect and get to know people very different than I am. Um, Through, whether they're different because of their sexuality or whether all those things. It's been a wonderful way to meet people and build friendships. And the more friendships we have with people that are different from us, the more we learn. And the more we learn, the better, stronger people we are. So that's how I have found, one of the ways I found this totally crappy myth actually is on the flip side something that is that is empowering. Um, And finally, we're getting a little long, so we're not going to go through all of them that I had written out, which is fantastic, by the way. Um, Dominants do not value communication. And once again, we know that this is not the case. To have a DS relationship, a functioning, working DS relationship, there is a whole lot of communication that needs to take place. Not only do you have to communicate about what's for dinner tonight, or perhaps what movie you want to see this weekend. Typically, there's new movies that come out at around American Thanksgiving. I don't know if that's the case or not. I'm really not too hip on pop culture these days. Um, but you have to communicate, and you have to communicate about intimate things. Um, there's a saying out there somewhere where it goes to along the nature of, you put their genitals in your mouth, and yet you were not able to talk to them about what is bothering you. And in a way and the reason why I said genitals rather than, specific, um, specific actual organs is I've seen it go from men to women to, it goes the gamut. So it's communication is so important, and kind of like that joke says, is that, yeah, it's, the communication that you develop in lifestyle empowers you and in a way serves as a learning experience, to help us be better communicators, not only in our relationships, but in our regular lives. Being able to communicate with that person the genitals in your mouth, when you're upset with them, and communicate with them as a human being, not yelling, screaming, thumping chest, or any of the other ways that people um, communicate horribly and off the rails. But being able to have effective communications, effective, intimate communications, being able to do that and learn from it when you screw up, because we all do screw up the communication side, we all do it. Learning from trying new ways to communicate, trying new ways to talk it through, all those good things. They empower us and help us become better people. So with that, we have worked through the list, or at least the amount of the list that I want to go through, rather than extend the podcast any longer than it needs to be. I think I've communicated my point here effectively. So I want to wish everyone out there a happy, happy Thanksgiving on Thursday. Even if you've already celebrated your Thanksgiving, or your Thanksgiving perhaps is coming up. So have a wonderful, wonderful holiday. And if you don't have a holiday, um, I am sorry. I will have some turkey on your behalf on Thursday. So, with that, I will chat with you next week. No matter what platform you're listening to this on, please don't forget to click the follow button so you never miss a new episode. And I look forward to chatting with you again really soon.